Hi, my name is Joey Frass. Today is May 19th, 2011, and I am interviewing Howard Walter Rubin in Kentwood, Michigan. Howard was born in Detroit on February 7th, 1938. He served in the Marines from 1956 to 1958. His highest rank was a buck sergeant. This interview is being conducted for the Veterans History Project at the Library of Congress. What are some family details about your family, like such as what were your parents' occupations or number and gender of siblings?
My father was an engineer, and my mom was a stay-at-home housewife.
What were you doing before you entered the service?
I went to high school and got out, and I was going to go to college and decided not to, so I enlisted in the Marine Corps.
Did you have any other family members that served in the military?
My older brother served 4 years in the Airforce, yes.
Why did you choose to enlist in service?
Well, at the time, I could either go to college or there was a draft on. I hope everyone knows what that is. They draft you into the service. So I had those choices, and at that time I went to college, but I didn't want to go to college right then, and so my other choice was to enter the service, and I chose the Marine Corps to go to.
Was there any specific reason for choosing the Marine Corps?
They told me that I could go into parachute school after I got there. My mother didn't think much of that, but I thought it'd be exciting. Remember, I was 18 years old, too. So.
And what were the early days of training like?
Boot camp was 9 weeks in Parris Island, South Carolina. I've never been through anything like that before or since. Very, very hard.
Were you in any specialized training?
Before I went into parachute school, I was in the infantry, as they call it, and then the parachute school chance came along, and I volunteered for that and qualified for it.
What was it like adapting to military life, such as the food and social life?
I'm laughing. The food wasn't that great. Socially, it was okay. We were gone a lot. Of the 3 years I was in, I was overseas for 18 months, or half the time. So that was hard. Yeah.
And where did you serve when you were overseas?
Well, in the Mediterranean, I was both times. There were two times of 9 months each. I was aboard an aircraft carrier called the USS Essex, and our planes would fly off that aircraft carrier carrying us as we jumped out of the planes. Both times it was the USS Essex.
Why exactly did you jump from the planes? Were you on a special mission or anything?
Well, in the Lebanon crisis, we evacuated about 400 families that were there, American families, and we parachuted behind Lebanon. Beirut, Lebanon is on the coast of the Mediterranean Ocean. Mm-hmm. And of course the carrier was out there, so the planes took off, and we jumped behind or within Beirut, Lebanon, if you would, and came towards the sea to make sure it was all peaceful, and which it was, but we were ready for most anything that came along, and we evacuated the 400 families. That was a joy. On the deck of this aircraft carrier, there were about 900 people. We took them to Italy.
Did you ever witness any casualties or mass destruction?
Yeah, in Lebanon there was some uprisings. There were NATO forces there. I think everyone knows what that is. A lot of countries together, and there was skirmishes there that I witnessed. Didn't take part in it, but there were casualties. Yes.
Were there any hard emotions towards the feeling of losing someone?
When I was in boot camp, there's a drill that they have where you crawl along with your rifle on your stomach under barbed wire. And the fellow that was 2 rows away from me was very scared, as we all were. And during this time, they're shooting live ammunition over your heads, about 2 feet. And he stood up and was killed.
I bet that was tough then.
Very, very, yeah.
Were there any friendships formed?
There were, and I didn't, sadly to say, I don't have those today. Remember, this is over 50 years ago that I was in, but for about 10 years after, I kept friendships with 2 people. One died very young, and the other, I don't even know where he is, to be honest with you.
Was it tough staying in touch with family and friends back home, and how exactly did you communicate?
Well, overseas, that was by mail. We didn't have email and cell phones as you guys do today, so, and once a month we could call home, but it was with mail. I wrote my mom and dad about 3 times a week, so that was good. It's always good to get mail.
Mm-hmm. What were the recreation activities that you did off duty?
Oh, I love to play basketball. Today I watch it, I don't play it, but love to play basketball. When we were at home in North Carolina, that was the base I was out of. I played a lot of golf, which I still do today, and swimming. I like to swim. All my children were swimmers.
How did you return home after your service ended?
After the second 9 months, we were flown back, and I had about a month after that, and I got out of the service at Camp Lejeune, North Carolina, a Marine base there that still is there.
How were you received by your family and community when you arrived home?
Well, sadly to say, unlike people from the Korean or Vietnam War, received well. Of course, we weren't in a war then, if you would, and people looked at the military differently than they do today, Joey. So, yeah, it was a good experience that way.
Was it difficult to readjust to the civilian life?
I got out of the service, and don't hold me to this date, about January 7th, and I went back to college about January 20th, so I had about 2 weeks. Big adjustment for me. Civilian life, you have to study, obviously, and whatnot, and I had a professor that was a veteran of the Korean War, and he stopped me after about a month. He was a history professor and asked me, "Are you a veteran?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "Are you having trouble at school?" And I said, "Yes." And so once a week he would sit with me for about an hour after class and ask me about my other classes. How are you studying? Maybe if you did it this way it would be better. Here's some tips that, because he had done it, that got me through, and I'll never forget him. He's probably the reason that I did complete my schooling afterwards.
Are you still in contact with him, or are you a membership of any other veterans organization?
With him, no. He died probably 20 years ago, Joey, and no, I'm not affiliated with any veterans of foreign wars or anything like that. So.
How have these experiences affected your life?
Well, I guess the discipline of the service is so much different than civilian life, if you would, and so in my schooling, as I said, he helped me a lot, but then in the job I had, as far as discipline, I was a salesman on my own, so I could get up when I wanted to, always got up early, was always early for my appointments, which I apologize, I was late with you today, Joey.
That's okay.
Try not to do that, but that was good for me, the discipline there of how you do things and think.
Are there any other life lessons that you've learned?
Probably as far as the service goes with those people that I said that I witnessed dying, to think of the other person first, because they don't agree with my views on things, that they aren't wrong. There's certain things I stand for and believe in, but I try to be as flexible as possible with people if they disagree with me on those.
Are there any other thoughts or comments you would like to make?
No, it was something I'll never regret. It was 3 years out of my life, but remember, I was young, and I came out of there, I was over 21, so I was legal, as they say today, and I could buy liquor. And when I got to school, other kids found out that, remember, I was a freshman at 21, almost 22, and they were 17 and 18, and they wanted me on the weekends to buy beer and whatnot, and I refused to do that. And some of them thought I was very, very unfriendly to do that, but I said, no, that could lead to things that aren't good, and you probably don't know what those are, but I think in the end they thought well of me for not doing that at that point. And I'd do it again. So,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome. Good to see you, Joey.
Good to see you too.
Okay.